Yeah.
Right, this time I will call this workshop meeting of the Port Lavaca City Council to order on this Monday, March 25th, at 5:38. With the usual formalities and this time I will ask if there's anyone that signed up to speak just for comments before our meeting begins.
Hello, Rosie.
Oh,
I think all of those involved one of our agenda items. You
they wanted to, they wanted,
have the option to speak during comments, but there can be no discussion.
because you wanted to read your letter, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna, my name's Loretta Brown and I have 4 parks, my husband and I do. And we've asked several park owners to come in and partner with us over this discussion. I know that you've already started working on solutions and we appreciate that it is a discussion and it's not adversarial. But I wanted to bring up the point that we talked to Texas Association of Campground. It's the largest RV park association in the country, not just Texas, but in the country. And they brought up several issues, and I want to, they wrote a letter on their behalf supporting this. But the main part, there's no pass this out to the members. The main point of the discussion, without reading the whole letter to you, is there has to be standards, because even under the ordinance, on your discussion, you put down campground and manufactured home parks. That's the first thing that we need to address. None of us are having long-term manufactured park rentals. We don't want to be associated with that. We are not trying to set up RV parks in the city under any circumstances. And all of us have parks that are, our people have wheels on them, they're mobile. They are not gonna, they're not gonna be in a location where they end up dying. And so we don't want to be pushed into HUD discussion. We don't want to be put into that. And so the letter that Brian wrote us is a phenomenal letter, and he respectfully gives you about 5 points that really need to be addressed, so we're all on the same page. For one, he said Taco has attempted to pass statewide standards tied directly to NFPA 1194 to provide guidance consistency throughout cities and counties. We believe the legislation will pass in the next legislative session, and but it makes more sense to have our city ordinance on the books that aligns with those standards instead of separate standards. There are issues with fire departments wanting to come in and make residential applications to RV parks, and they don't apply. So I'm asking specifically that before any of this stuff is handled, that you use their outline of who we are and what we need to be, how the ordinances need to go to where we're all on the same page and we're comparing apples to apples, not pushing us into mobile home manufacturers parks.
I agree on that.
That the other thing is that grandfathering these issues in really limits older RV parks to not upgrade, because then they're forced to move into the new ordinances to comply. And so an older park that would like to just upgrade and look better and be better and add a few things, all of a sudden is punished for doing that. Because if they did, they'd have to rebuild the park completely in order to to qualify under your new policy. And so these are all issues that we really need to look at. And he did a good job at writing the letter to explain all of that. So I appreciate you reading this.
Thank you, Loretta. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Honorable Mayor, honorable city council members, my name is Joe Trevino. I'm a park manager at Texas Lakeside. Myself and my coworker James Valinsky are here. What I do want to say is that I want to thank you for having this workshop. We also own a park in Rockport, and we're members of an RV council over there. So when they decided to implement an ordinance, the council worked together, the RV council worked together with the city. And I think that's what's missing here is if the park owners had been united at the time this ordinance was amended in 2022, we could have had the discussion and the dialogue and we could have hit this off. But thanks again, appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Tina Hart. Thank y'all for hearing this today. I'm owner, me and my husband are owner of Gator RV Park. We're actually out on the river. We're not in the city. But I know that whenever city items come up, they trickle into the county and they, so I'm here to discuss that. And regarding Lighthouse Beach, I know y'all have it on the agenda for raising the daily RV space rentals. And that's something that, for me personally, I love Lighthouse Beach RV, and I know a lot of people have talked about that maybe they shouldn't have an RV park there. I personally like it. I think it's a great place for families and also for the entry fees at the gate. I definitely think that needs to be reinstated. That's absolutely, and people have talked about that it costs money for the park for taxpayers, but really that park with the daily fees and with the rental fees should support itself. And it's a jewel for Port Lavaca. And that's not saying anything against the other RV parks that are here. They all have different clientele. The one at Lighthouse Beach would definitely get a lot more travel through it where the others won't. So there's going to be a different clientele that go there. We were all of us were full probably about a little over 3 years ago. And we had wait lists, all of us. We are no longer full. We have a lot of empty spaces and, that's also something to think about. And I know Lighthouse Beach has some empty spaces. So it's important to know that if you're going to regulate now, that we're already struggling. We're already in a point that we're not bringing in the revenue that we used to. So I think that's really important. You don't kick a person when they're down. So on the business license, so I'm not sure why it would be singled out for certain business. And then that there's already entities in place in the city of Port Lavaca and even in the county that handle a lot of the things that a business license would regulate. So why are you going to double work whenever there's so many things in the community that could use that time to be addressed? There's always issues in cities. And so by adding another regulation, are you really going to create a space that's better or just fragment people more? So that's my discussion. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Tina. Hey. Ask again, is there anyone else here that wishes to speak before count? You may also have some time when we call the agenda items up later if it involves RV parks, which one of the other items on the agenda. All right, so that ends the public comments, and we'll now move on to our items for discussion. And we'll begin with item number 1. Discuss regulations regarding manufactured home parks and recreational vehicle parks in the city limits, including required license and fee for operations, chapter 26. And Derek, you wanna?
Mayor, council,
Derek, do you want me to give a little background, little history lesson first?
sure,
We got here.
okay.
Okay, I think Loretta pointed out a couple things I want to make sure that we get brought out that, you know, the ordinance for that regulated manufactured homes and RV parks was adopted in 2002. And at that time, that's when it was decided that, you know, in order to have an RV in city limits, it had to be placed in a licensed RV park. Can you put on your mic? I'm having a hard time calling, and if I can't hear you, I don't know, are these on though?
They're not, the other ones are on.
Okay, okay.
That one work?
I can try to speak, I will try to speak up. How's that? I'll put my theater voice, but these are for the Facebook.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, in 2002, is when the city adopted the manufactured home and RV park ordinance. And at that time, that's when it was, decided that in order for an RV to be, placed in the city limits, that it needed to be in a registered, licensed, if you will, RV park. And so, in that ordinance, basically, the primary focus of the ordinance was manufactured homes, and the RV park was an, oh, by the way, RV parks have to do the same thing as a manufactured home, except I think the size of the lots were different. That was it. So then fast forward to 2022, there were issues and there was a lot of discussion as far as where to put RVs and where not to put RV parks and that sort of thing. And then the decision was that we, you know, would like to put some more meat behind the development standards for an RV park. And to Loretta's point, we looked at NFPA 1194. I had actually designed the park for Texas Lakeside, and I used the NFPA 1194, and I wanted the city to use those same standards as our standard. So the ordinance that was adopted in 2022 stated for all new construction, new RV parks, they had to meet the NFPA 1194. Now, in that ordinance, it basically grandfathers any, you know, existing parks at the time, unless they were doing, the improvements had to be 50% of the value, not any improvement. But if they were going to improve the park by more than 50% of the value of the park, that's when the NFPA would kick in. In association bringing that ordinance to up to date, staff had recommended some increased rates for licensing and renewals. Before, the license requirement was $100. It had been $100 since 2002, but it had not been enforced. And that's why when we adopted this ordinance in 2022, we want to take the opportunity to start to enforce the laws that had been in the book since 2002. So that, but to your point, as far as the NFPA 1194, we fully agree, and that's what we have actually done in our ordinance, is any new parks have to comply with NFPA 1194. But there is, you know, stipulation in there for grandfathering for existing parks, because existing parks aren't expected, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, economically not feasible to bring it up to NFPA standards. But if you're going to make significant improvements to the park, then it would kick in that you would need to bring it up to code. Or if you're going to add to the park, it would need to be brought up to code. We have, you know, staff, we've met and we've made some, you know, initial recommendations that Derek will review. But, you know, we're looking at the license fee being waived for existing RV parks and manufacturing parks when they initially apply. The annual then the annual renewal would, no fee for that as well. But if they don't renew within a certain amount of time, then they would have to start over with a new license. New licenses, we agree that this is probably pretty steep, that what was in there after looking closely at what other cities have done. So we're looking at a lesser fee for that. But with that introduction and history lesson, then I'll let Derek take it over.
You kind of summed up everything I was gonna say. Yeah, that's, in your attachments, you'll see that, for, manufactured homes, we do have, in the ordinance currently, we got a housing park license for $100. What we don't have is a renewal, license fee, but as, Ms. Weaver had mentioned, staff would recommend.
Yeah, that was,
To, the waive the fee for renewal.
there would not be a fee for renewal, right?
I'll kind of go over that in the ordinance recommendation change, here in a minute. For RV parks, currently the license fee is $250. Staff is recommending, that the fee would be the same as manufactured home for $100 for initial inspection, registration fee. And same thing with the renewal would be,
Zero,
no cost.
and zero for transfers as well.
Right, yeah, and I'll go over that here in a second. Some of the other registration fees that we do have, down below that. You can see at the bottom, we have facilities without food preparation. The fire department charges $50 for the initial inspection fee. And that's also for the CO, for the business to open. That's even an existing structure. If it changes ownership or changes business or anything, the fire department and the building department goes in and makes sure everything is in compliance, then we issue a CO. If they're not doing any food prep, then it's $50 fee for that. Both departments go and do their inspection.
And basically the purpose of identifying that is just to show that there are some cases in our ordinance that we do charge for inspections or certain types of business license.
And also, the ones with the on-site, it's a $75 initial fee for the same type of inspections. So basically daycares, hospitals, hotels, food establishments, everything, even food vendors, all those do have inspection fees, registration fees. It depends whether or not what they are, if they have, if they're renewed each year or if they have to apply for a new application each year. And on this one, we're requesting that they renew the permit fee, the registration fee, and have the registration fee waived if it's for renewal. Okay, so if you go to the second page, that kind of, we'll talk about for the ordinance for the RV parks. At the top, it specifically says in there that occupied recreational vehicles shall be installed in a licensed recreational vehicle park or manufactured housing park.
What are you reading on?
Yeah. This is our existing ordinance.
And we don't have that. Nobody's seen that.
I've got an extra copy.
Yes.
There's the other, there's one. Got to, if y'all need any more, let us know. This packet doesn't have it.
It says we're waiting on copies. One of the things that in the letter that Taco addressed is there were several instances on that ordinance that you designed the parks with, the 1194. That the city of Port Lavaca went over and above those, just kind of pushed the limit a little bit more than what the actual ordinance was. And he had concerns about 4 or 5 of those issues. And so I want to bring that up and have that part of the minutes that the city's push over the initial ordinance is of concern for us.
Okay.
Okay. While we're waiting to follow what you're talking
Yes,
about.
who are you? Derek Smith, Director of Development Services.
For the city.
Yes, you're gonna be the one inspecting.
Yes. It'll either be me or code enforcement, more likely me.
Okay. Can we discuss now?
Yeah.
So you told me over the phone that you could work with our customers. What does that mean?
As far as,
I don't know, whatever you know.
We have a code violation and you're gonna work with our
You're
customers.
gonna come through and say you don't like the RV there.
no.
No.
We check to make sure they're in compliance with the minimum standards. If it's unsafe, I'll bring it to your attention. Say if their sewer connection is not, hooked up properly and sewer is running out all over the ground, get it fixed. You know, and if you need some time to do it, then we'll work with you to get that done, but that's going to be a health credit, so it needs to be expedited. You know, and or if you have bare wiring, if you have a plug that's burned out, and there or extension cords running everywhere, there's a lot of different violations that can occur. I could go through a number.
We know what they are, but it's
Right.
amazing that you guys wanna, you wanna own a park and then you wanna manage our park. And that is a conflict of interest.
Not only that, y'all been around with sewer over my ground for 4 years now.
And we haven't even got a call back.
4 years.
I'm not.
No.
Sorry.
Didn't we deal with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's worried.
We addressed it and not even a call back. Nobody even checked on it, tried to figure it out, nothing.
Okay, either, can you address that, Wayne?
I spoke with you on the phone at length.
Cody was not here. So I had the city come.
I know, but I heard about it and Wayne, I mean, I was told that we got it settled.
No, it's not settled.
They came out and I was told, I guess, are you the guy?
Yeah, I was standing out there, they cameraed it, found a bunch of broken lines on your side.
Monday, I would get a call from you.
Very nice.
He would come up with a plan on how we would. And you did not call me. Cricket, just like that 4 years.
But I was never told that they wasn't, I was told it was addressed and taken care of.
Because they were on their side.
Yeah.
He's fixed without a city fixing it.
Cause we cameraed the lines in there and the brakes were on your side.
See, you have no idea what you're talking about. I would be happy for you to come out to my park and talk with to you.
Well, Wayne, who was out there?
Lance.
Lance? Okay,
Is this, I think the council.
so we'll get with Lance and Mario tomorrow and meet you out there.
I think a council person.
Yeah, and so that would be Alan's district, I think?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Alan's or
Which
Jim's?
one? It's across the street from my district. Broadway splits us in half. And
Okay, so yeah,
Depends on the,
what time tomorrow will work for you? Okay, let's get there, 9 o'clock?
He's still asleep.
Is there, maybe this discussion is a place where we can go and see what means to get in compliance with the.
Yes.
Or,
I mean, everything's on our website. Yes,
I guess my next question was.
and that's what we're reading up of here is.
Y'all gonna be unplugging people's campers to check plugs.
Oh,
So how are you gonna check?
I know who that guy is.
Well, I'm just gonna look for, like I said, if there's extra safety cords, if I can see that the plug is burned up, you know, I'll look at the breakers, make sure they're marked. You can tell it's been tripping a whole lot. You know, things like that. But I'm actually gonna get a tester and unplug it and check and make sure it's right.
So, they're not. It's just
Oh,
a visual inspection.
Yeah, it's the same thing as with residential inspection. I don't go and unplug the appliances.
Which park you gonna meet at?
$10.
$10.
I guess also it's like. It
Yeah,
says to, okay, yeah, so if it says to shut the park down, if they're out.
It is $10, right?
What have you.
Okay.
right?
No, it's,
Huh?
I'm just trying to find out what these mean. I'm into the conversation.
Question. Excuse me, sirs. We know James and Loretta because we're all from, but we're not sure who you are, or I'm not sure who you are. Can you please?
I'm Robert Penland. I'm Sweetwater RV.
Sweetwater.
They're not in the-
But that's not in the city limits, yeah.
They're outside the city.
Yeah, for outside.
Well,
We won't.
that's okay. I just didn't know who they were.
City, kind of like, oh, they're about to take, you know, here we go.
Yeah. No, I just,
Well, I think the county has different authority.
they can't really, so it's just one, no.
Yeah.
Right.
It typically trickles.
It never goes back, so.
No, what I'll do is, I'll typically have a checklist. And if there's a violation, I'll notice, and, you may probably I'll take a picture of it and know what the violation is.
So is this gonna be like a scheduled inspection, like you?
It's an annual inspection, call,
Coming out.
coming by on so day, not gonna have to interrupt any kind of services or anything, so you don't have to be there for the inspection, but if you want to, you can. But just walk side to side, make sure there's no sewer leaks in the water leaks.
So I guess on this inspection too, this is gonna be a city done inspection, so the city's authority on this is absolute.
I'll have a checklist, the violations, it depends on the severity of it, if it's,
Let's do the worst one, whatever the worst one is.
sewer running all over the place.
What are we looking at?
Depending on how bad it is, I'm not gonna give you more than 7 days.
But you've had 4 years for
I'm
ours.
not talking about it. This-
I know
this is
it,
totally
but I'm
separate.
telling you
This is the
guys,
first time I've heard of this.
I know it, but.
But anyway, but
Let's say I'm broke and I can't afford to fix it
Right.
in 7 days.
Well, if it's just for one side,
Yeah.
then you can shut down that one side, they
How
can
can
go
you
to
do
another.
that? Runs in.
Yeah, and you may have to, you know,
Entire section?
and I understand sometimes the plumber is hard to get, in touch with within 7 days too. That's why I say I gotta work on custom all things. But, if
I
possible.
guess my question is if it's a financial burden on me that I can't afford to shut down 7 sections right now. Where I see the unfair advantage that you guys have is our taxpayer money is funding the repairs of your park.
Well,
That's a different,
and that is not true.
that is not true.
It's not true, but that's another
So
agenda.
who pays?
The park does, park generation, the
Revenue,
generated by the,
Oh, okay, maybe I have that information.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the.
it's here, heard,
yes, there's a special
fund.
Lighthouse Beach Park.
fund, and that's what operates the lighthouse.
So it's a fund, like it doesn't operate like out of a general ledger, like
No.
money in, money out.
Right,
It's Enterprise.
it's an enterprise
Where's the
fund
Revenue come from?
from the park, from the RV spots.
Yeah,
No taxpayer dollars?
no taxpayer dollars. to go.
And I did call the city and the lady told me that she writes checks for our expenses right out of the city of Port Lavaca. It's not a separate enterprise.
It's,
It is an enterprise fund. I mean, you know,
Your income is, but on your website, you don't have an actual profit and loss where you have expense items
It-
against your income.
I mean, we don't have a separate bank account for a public utility fund or for other accounting.
look at our audit
Yes.
and look at it there.
It's all broken down in the audit book.
So it's following everything that's mowing.
The mowing, I mean, the mowing right now is, well, we're jumping ahead to a different agenda item if we want to. All that.
First.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it'd be easier if we, because they are separate issues. This is dealing with, you know, direct development services where you're talking about is dealing with public works and the parks department. They're separate issues. So, you know, we just deal with the issues regarding licensing of the RV parks. And again, you know, the purpose for, again, it's life safety issues. Folks, you know, we don't want to do anything to hurt somebody or to contaminate the water or anything.
Years and we've never had, RV parks don't catch on fire. We don't get people don't get electrocuted. We don't have police running in there because we've got problems. It wasn't significant enough to have a license when you adopted it in 2002. In 2022, you didn't think enough to actually talk to park owners to reconcile this and be partnering with it together, but now all of a sudden, it's a decision that for the safety, we've got to tackle.
Yes.
I think that the general concern is more so than
why do RV parks need to be licensed? Does, is AutoZone licensed?
Yeah, well, according to ordinance, in order for an RV to be located in the city limits, they're not allowed to be just on a lot or anywhere in town. They have to be in a licensed RV park.
Sure, I guess.
And
The general feeling is maybe a little bit being picked on as individual owners, whereas if you told HEB they had their license and pay an annual fee, there might be a team of attorneys down here.
Well, that's what the CO is for, the certificate of occupancy. And that's their registration fee for the business.
Mhm.
That's what we take care of.
They pay.
So they charge, if they prepare food on site, and it's a $75 fee. The fire department and the building department will go out there, we'll do our, final inspection, make sure everything is in compliance, then we issue the certificate of occupancy. That's basically what it is for the RV parks. The RV parks for many, many years have not received this certificate of occupancy. So we don't know if they're in compliance or if they're not in. So that's really, to my knowledge, that I can think of off the top of my head, I think that's the only business in town that's not registered to have a business.
But if you set up a business, you don't have to have a license.
You have to have a certificate of occupancy structure or within the city limits.
But we're not occupying a structure, it's God's.
Well, the property,
I know, but you don't have to have a license to be in business in the state of Texas.
you do within the city, municipality.
But you've never.
And that's in the building code. What we're talking about. It is excellent.
Well, and as we're proposing, there would not be a fee associated with the.
And you like talking about the taxation and everything.
Yeah, so
It's gonna be waived for existing RV parks. You need new RV parks to come in, they're gonna have to pay an initial $100 fee. And that's gonna take care of the initial inspection fee for the fire department and the building department to go out and do the inspection, make sure they're in compliance with the code.
and we want, and the other thing that we haven't brought up is we need to establish a baseline so we know where we have existing RVs. These are registered today. These are existing RVs. So if somebody comes in after that, then they need to comply with new standards. Those that are registered that are here now and we know are in town, we have documentation that they're here as of this date, they are grandfathered and they don't have to comply. But if we never establish that date should have happened in 2002 and it didn't. And so that's where we're trying to play catch up. Okay, we need to establish this baseline so that from here on out, any new parks that come in need to comply with the more stringent guidelines.
Sure, so what, if I heard you correctly, what I thought I heard, let me explain it, is that you said any existing parks, like the existing parks here, we're gonna be grandfathered in. We're not gonna have the fee or the yearly, correct?
The fee or the what?
The yearly,
Right.
the yearly fee.
There's no fees, right? I mean, we still want to influence, but yes, there's no
So
fees.
you didn't come in and register, you would then become out of compliance?
Yes.
And then you would.
Yeah.
Be grandfathered out of the registration, because why do I need to come back once a year and say, can I please not pay my fee?
No,
No, there's no fee. There's no fee for
Why do
renewal.
I need to come to this building to
The
not?
reason why we ask for the registration is we just want to make sure all the information's updated.
Right. And
Information changes, we need to come in and do it?
Yes.
Because I feel like I would.
we're,
And I would be like, oh, guess what, Robbie's supposed to be here Thursday.
Well, what I recommend.
be available online as well. So you don't physically have to come to City Hall to do that.
Again, and I don't know how these whole processes work, I would just suggest that maybe the people who are already there, if you make some type of change, it's gonna change you, and do you, say I come in and put in a wedding venue? Like, I would have to, I would have to come in and say I'm building a wedding.
Well, you know, he's gonna do an annual inspection,
Yeah.
which will kick off why you need to get a renewal.
Right.
Every year, he's gonna do an inspection.
Sure, and my only suggestion is when he does that annual inspection, he has a check mark on his inspection that says existing RV park. Grandfathered in, and we can just check that, and nobody has to come down here and be registered.
Good online.
You can do it online.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure we have current contact information. And if there's been any changes.
So what's if it changes, it's our burden to come and do it.
But they never,
They don't.
People know. And if
Right.
it changes
If you're
ownership,
doing that annual inspection, you'll know.
not necessarily.
cities always put the burden on the taxpayers. It's just the way it is.
Why doesn't the annual inspection come with your renewal certificate?
It does.
No, I mean, you bring it and say, I've done your inspection, here's the renewal, and that way.
If you're present.
Okay.
I go on the inspection, if everything passes, then you get your registration for the next year.
I think the.
So you don't actually have to go online or come in to.
If there's no changes or anything, then it's renewed, period. There's no fee or anything.
So
I just have to do the inspection.
so every year you would
I have
do
to
the
do that.
inspection and then.
And that could be part of it is, whenever I do the inspection, I can find out if information changes that need to be, anything needs to be changed. And that's something that I could work with the owner.
Cause I mean, I understand what he's talking about,
Right.
because time goes by like that, and all of a sudden, I'm.
Well, we send out notices.
Yeah,
But we want to make sure it's getting to the right address. And if
Right.
we change the addresses on us, and we don't know, you're not gonna get notified.
What is it? How do you think the address of the RV park?
It could be PO box.
I don't get mail at my apartment complex.
Huh?
What's that?
Where do you get your payments when they mail it to you?
My payments?
Mhm.
Get them into my bank account. They pay
Where do you get your
electronic,
bank account?
huh?
Electronic mail, where do people send you mail for the RV park?
1943 Sweetwater Road.
But not always do you have a mailbox.
Change.
That's what I was getting at, we can address that each year and run through
I think the
my.
general concern is just extra stuff, extra steps, and we're gonna.
It's actually extra steps that we're gonna be doing for the inspection.
It's for me, it's like, okay, well, there's another box I have to check.
Right. And so, if I may, I kind of, for the grandfathering part, she had mentioned about it.
Well, extra spaces, you would have to get a permit.
RV ordinance, say 30 years ago, we didn't have all that. So if RV park only had 30, about 50. That doesn't mean that they have to bring everything in. It's just about some 50 sites. So, that was not the intent.
No, I know that. We attempted to ask to build another part.
We're not charging.
All the other cities.
And it actually is a one-time fee
Uh,
for new RVs.
they told us, the city said, we really don't know what the requirements are, go pay G&W and let them tell you, and so we spent $7,000 and then whatever it was, $3,000, I don't know. And then we brought it back and they said, oh, we don't want that in the city, and then they came back and said, now you put like parks in the city, and so. This is a changing venue.
We usually.
That was the land use. That was land use. That's a different issue.
Yes, okay.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Are you saying that we will never be charged? Or is that something y'all can change?
Well, right now, the council we need to amend the ordinance, but that is what staff is proposing.
And it's not forever because every election, council can change.
So that's what we're talking about. It's,
But I mean, yeah, we recognize, and quite honestly, when the rates went up in 2022, that significantly, it was done in conjunction with a big rate structure change with the permit department. And that honestly just got lost in the shuffle. I didn't realize it had gone that much. I knew it was $100 before. I didn't realize it had gone that much until it was brought up, and I said, yeah, that's a little. Yeah, that is a little steep.
most of us have just over 50 units, so it went from
Yeah.
$100 to $500 a year.
And we, and I think, council is the final say, but I think everybody's recognizing that needs to be addressed.
I'd like to say, our taxes on these RV parks are going up every year. And that money comes to you. You can't absorb an inspection. For the amount of money we're paying you guys in taxes.
Ours is
Well, and again, let me reiterate, we are proposing not to charge for the annual inspection right.
Very hard.
And again, that council needs to, staff, we need to bring an amended ordinance to them, and our plan would be after this workshop, we get everybody's input, we bring that back to them for a first reading on April 8th, and then the council will decide, for sure, what to go forward. I mean, I know we'll get to a point here, council make their comments as well, but, staff's recommendation at this point would be to not have those fees, waive any fees for first-time registration for existing parks. There will not be for anybody any annual renewal / inspection fee. But if that is not done within a timely manner, say 90 days or so after it expires, then the license can potentially be voided, and you'd have to go with a new license. So, but between,
Although all that would invoke is $100.
and that would be $100, correct, for a new license. But again, it's a matter of whether we put the burden solely on city staff to make sure that's done, or oftentimes the true burden is on the owner of the business to initiate the renewal. But in reality, it's kind of, they both work together. We send out reminder notices, but of course we need to make sure we have the correct address. And if we don't get it, we'll have to send a second reminder. It's not like we just ignore the situation until it's too late to do anything about it. We're here to work with you. We do want you to be successful in your business, and we want everything to be safe. We need to make sure that the sewer systems are working properly, because we don't want inflow rainfall water into our sewer systems. So there's a lot of reasons for us to inspect, but the proposal right now would be, there would be no fee associated with that.
Like kick this dead horse one more time. Is there not a scenario where the grandfathered in RV parks aren't required to do an annual registration, because the annual registration is just paperwork? There's no money exchanging hands, and it's just a stumbling point for us that if we miss it, now we owe money. But either we're grandfathered in or.
And we can,
Correct?
We have the registration each year because for the inspection. That's whenever it triggers us to go out and do an inspection on it. The reason is, and I've seen this in other cities, not just ours, that got a little run extra electrical, go attach plugs to the outside of RV construction of buildings or RVs. They'll have extension cords running all over the place. Windows busted out, tires and this and all the RVs from blocks, and I've seen all kinds of things. What's wrong with that? But anyway, so that's the reason for the annual renewal, is so that also triggers the inspection. Inspection needs to be done on the property at least once a year, just for the safety of the customers that are staying.
So Derek,
And the protection of youth as the property owner.
But we don't need you to manage our business.
I'm not
We don't-
managing a business, I'm just checking for safety.
But so is the fire department, so is the police
Well,
department, so is our insurance companies. We don't like being in business with the city.
Well, like I
We
said,
don't like you managing our business.
well, that's the minimum standards of the NFPA 1194 and also our.
Mark out of the city.
That I'm looking at.
They can take the
And
park out of the
NFPA
city.
So I think Tim had a question.
I have to check.
so Derek, regarding the annual inspection, so like ATV, do they kick that off, or do you just have the annual inspection? I have some question about who kicks it off. So does
We do.
ATV, you kick, well, so that's his point. If you're doing it anyway, why would they have to do an
Well, I
annual
think you
renewal?
already said you could take the annual renewal and mark it off at the time you went and did the
Okay.
inspection, but so this question came back up. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
we discussed it, but pretty.
Just make an extra effort.
Yeah, basically what it is during that annual inspection, I'll verify that there's no changes that need to be made on the registration.
Reflect that in the wording of the ordinance.
But that's what we do with the ATV food handlers.
But if we can't find somebody, okay, so
All
if you
the
mail it out.
businesses, that's what we do.
Let Anne Marie speak, what?
Okay, so if you mail out the postcard, you don't hear from anyone, you go do your inspection, you don't see anyone, that would be, or you can't make sure because nobody's gotten back. You're doing the inspection And so you may have to not do the renewal for that one because they're not complying because they haven't told you they moved.
And
Yeah.
if they do have an office on the RV site, then we'll put a door hanger or something on the door or put something in the drop
But
box.
we'll work on some language to address that.
Yeah.
But it's so that it's not an extra burden, a paperwork burden on y'all to handle that. But at the same time, protect us from scenarios that somebody changes hands and we don't even learn about it.
But and as far as you're concerned with the RVs, as far as managing them, I'm just checking at the pedestal and at the sewer tank, or where they tie in. I'm not looking at the actual RV itself.
You're not-
Other than, no, but if they have a bunch of old tires and health issues, things like that, it's obvious.
But we're not in the family comments.
Oh, this is their neighbor, their neighbors. You don't have to. Then all the rest of it. But as far as something like power or something like that. Yes, ma'am.
Question, you talked about, if someone did not get the renewal done, then they would fall out of the grandfather. So would that be in not only a fee, but also compliance up to the new regulations?
No, they would
No.
fall out of the grandfather, they would have to apply for a new license. You'd have to pay the $100 fee and
Give his name.
make sure that the inspection's done, make sure it's in compliance, and then you can start the process all.
So
over.
would it cause them to lose those grandfathered in?
No. No,
They-
only if there's substantial
You just have to
improvements
pay
or,
your-
right.
Okay.
Yes.
I just-
Okay, I mean, I don't know, I don't know if anybody, if council's got any more comments on this, I think we've generally hashed out what we need to go back and look at making some amendments to the proposal to council to amend the ordinance. Are there other comments on this one?
Just want everybody to notice that the staff
Prepared a list of cities in the region that.
Yeah.
some do charge fees, some do not.
Most of the cities, especially surrounding us, do not charge. Victoria and Rockport. Beeville and, where do charge a fee. Some of the cities closer to Houston charge a fee, but all those areas had problems with expansion and growth, especially the Beeville and areas after during the oil field boom. It was rapid expansion, and the Houston area has similar problems and needed the extra funding for what they were doing. Most cities in our area do not, but I'd like for people to try to counsel just to note that most of the cities surrounding us, Victoria, Rockford, Ingleside, Bay City, do not charge fees.
If you had any qualms about whether we should or not, most of our cities do not.
And that breakdown is in that attachment in the packet.
So we wouldn't be.
I think it'd be interesting to know, on top of this, I think it'd be interesting to know how many RV parks they have within their city.
Yeah.
If they're not having in-city RV parks because they do not allow or whatever. That's,
Thing at Rockport has extra large amount. Victoria has a few. And Bay City, I'm not sure.
Victoria has I think in their park, they have a little park as well. So they got a city.
They do not charge fees.
So Derek, I'm still caught on this. Application for renewal not submitted within 90 days of the specified timeline shall be revoked.
Yeah, that's what we just discussed. We would change that, yes, to where it does, it doesn't do an automatic trigger like that. But yeah, we would reword that. Yes.
One question, but maybe I'd like to discuss with Joe Trevino.
About getting a group together, forming an association similar to Rockport, so that we can it'll be easier for us to discuss if we have a group that can bring us the issues instead of you coming in one at a time. That's what makes it so difficult. So we would appreciate it if we form a group. If we've got most of the people here today. You could present your issues to the city, the way that we can talk to the leader of the group, and that makes things move a lot faster.
Yeah, Mayor, with the help of Ms. Loretta and James, I think we could get there. We could get everybody together and start.
I've contacted 27 parks and all 27 parks had quite a bit of input in agreement with that.
You might just go countywide, because I've heard
I did.
a lot of county parks this week on this issue too.
One thing we may want to consider, I'm not saying we have to in this redo, is manufactured home park.
We do. I mean, I didn't, point that out, but they are two, that was part of the
Right.
objective of
Yeah.
what we did in 2022, because prior to that, they were kind of lumped together and they are different, to your point. That's why they are separate in the ordinance now. There are two, one area for one area that specifically regulates the manufactured home parks, and the second half of the ordinance basically regulates some RV parks, and they are two different things.
Well, and just to bring that note home, when you let it into being part of a manufactured home, then it becomes part of an issue with the judicial system when we have to evict somebody. All of a sudden, they go after the rules, oh, you have to have 30 days and blah, blah, blah. Well,
Yeah,
Saco has gone to legislation and said, we're part of the hotel motel hospitality forum, not long-term HUD issues. To where if somebody doesn't pay, they have wheels on their deals. They don't have to be given 30 days. You can just ask them to leave. And we fall under a whole complete different legal system, but when the city doesn't separate it, then it.
well, I think the only place that there's any blur at all is that in our ordinance, we do allow RVs to be in a manufactured home park. But I don't, the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
But they have to be installed in accordance with the manufacturer.
Yes, if they're in a manufactured,
So, to be clear.
they would have to be tied down if they're in a
Yes.
their home park, but if they're in an RV park, a licensed RV park, they don't have to be tied down. So, and that's part of, yeah, hurricane issues as well.
Maybe give council a question for the RV, for you, for instance. So do you actually, so for people who move into your park, do you actually, can they stay there as long as they want, or are there terms as far as they have?
Is that we specified that it is not a long-term lease.
Okay,
There's park rules and, they have to do with cleanliness, quietness, maintenance. We don't let them put long-term storage out there. They rent a piece of cement, a plug and a water deal. And they're not putting that long-term anything. So, in every city, you have a different flavor of what kind of park it is. So Rockport would be from tourism, whereas we have about 10,000 contractors around the city. So ours are mostly worker bees that go home on weekends.
okay.
And so our guys are there for 3 or 4 months, and then another crew comes in and another crew comes in, and it's just kind of like that. So I think different parks draw a different kind of clientele, like your park is more tourism than work based.
Well, and that brings up a good question that I might get with Ms. Weaver later on about, but RV parks, there are times when RVs have stayed there for many, many years. The next thing you know, they have porches and decks and all kinds of other things all around them, accessory buildings. So, even with the annual inspection, we're able to catch all that. But would that still be considered as temporary housing? Because my concern with that is also fire separation requirements, between the tenants. So I just keep that in mind for the next council meeting.
Also not attached.
Right.
Sometimes you get people with handicap issues and
That's,
getting in and out of
Right.
smaller stuff. I don't allow it at all in mine because, it's, once again, it's temporary.
right.
We don't allow anything in the grass area, so it's use your steps. If you want to build a wooded step, as long as you can get the extra 3 foot to get you a little bit easier way in. We also do contracts. Whenever you come to stay at my park, you tell me how long you're gonna stay. If you say I'm gonna stay a year, we go, no, we're gonna do a 6-month contract with you or a 3-month contract with you. And we just renew. We get in contact with them after 3 months, go, okay, if everything's good, then we'll renew for another 3. And that way it's just easier on the billing part, but we don't we don't do any long-term
Yeah.
lease on that piece of property.
And also, if, it might be a good starting point for you all, is TCEQ defines RV parks. Like, for example, I'm a transient non-community RV park, and it's due to how long they're there. There's some definitions the state already has for them, but TCEQ has the definitions of what they classify RV parks as.
Mr. Trevino wants to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we do to Rockport, we do have some long-term residents that have been there 2-3 years, but it's mandatory that they have a permanent residence somewhere. For example, they have a home in San Antonio, Dallas, or whatever. They've got an RV park, but they've an RV at our park, just try and spend the weekends or whatever they want to. Plus, Stockholm cautions us not to get into any kind of leasing agreement. It's gotta be a guest, kind of like a hotel type. So some of the words we use can't be the same as with
It gives us the authority to be able to get them out of there without dealing with that HUD issue.
Right. Like
So
words like
if they're not compliant with cleanliness, or they're loud, or they've got a pet or something that's causing problems, if it doesn't comply with park rules, we have the right to evict them immediately. We have to go through those long-term issues.
Before we get too far along, I wanna let any council members that haven't had a chance to say anything to speak up at this time. Anything? So a couple of us have been recording speaking.
Well, and I guess the other thing is that because they are mobile, they have to remain mobile. So if there's a hurricane evacuation, there's nobody that says, hey, I can't move my, right? So you guys take care of all that.
I'll talk to that with our insurance, because in a hurricane, if those mobile homes those RVs are not able to leave, if the city has a mandatory evacuation, if one of our RVs does not move and causes damage in the park, our insurance is null and void.
But Loretta, y'all are good RV park owners, but not all RV parks have insurance.
I know, you're right.
Jody, is there anything else we need for you to prepare?
I don't think on this item, no. Can move on to item 2.
You have enough, we can address this at our
Yes.
next council meeting.
Yes.
Okay, then we're gonna move on to agenda item number 2 to discuss history and operation of Lighthouse Beach Park and recommendation of the Recreation and Parks Board to reinstate the admission fee. Wants to start this.
Well, I'll give a little history real quick, and then let Wayne talk. Attached in the packet. And again, these were things actually I prepared for council to help us stay on target in our discussion, but we're not limited to just these items in this discussion. But I put in there the fiscal year ending 2022 beach expense budget, which is our currently adopted budget for 2024, which has the expenses is $210,000, $294. Then detail of increased rental fees as has been recommended by the Parks Board. I've got a copy of the current fee ordinance that showing the recommended new rates in red. And then the large sheet is a revenue and expense information over the past 10 years, including occupancy rates since fiscal year ending 2021. Again, just a lot of information to help me and help Wayne and I in answering questions that may come up. A couple of things that I'm anticipating we need to discuss under this agenda item. The first, in our budgetary and financial management policy, it states, and this addresses some of the comments we had earlier, that it will be the general policy of the city that fees collected will be spent on maintenance of the facility grounds and other structures. The general fund tax dollars will not be used for this purpose. But I would like to take this opportunity to clarify the position with council. I believe that, and Anne Marie can maybe help as well with this interpretation. I believe this is saying that we can use tax dollars for capital improvements, not for maintenance.
If it's a loan,
That's what I want to clarify.
since I've been on council.
And so that's what we need to clarify that reword this to state. So does it include capital improvements to the beach area, to the whole beach, or just capital improvements to the campground itself? So we want to hash that out and discuss what that is. What is the council's policy on that? Then B, to discuss the permitted length of stay spaces, which we started a conversation on that just a little bit ago. The Parks Board, we've been discussing ways to make Lighthouse Beach Campground more conducive to tourists and vacationers versus long-term rentals since at least 2017, when I came back, because I was a topic on the Parks Board agenda right after I came back, right before Hurricane Harvey. And in 2021, council did adopt a rate structure that no longer provides monthly rental rates for the waterfront sites. So, and we can review the actual policy here in a minute. Then 3, discuss campers versus long-term rentals. And that's kind of been brought up already. I mean, our park, really, we are tailored and looking to attract tourists to the area, or people RVing on vacation up and down the Texas coast. Our hope is that when a family or a retired couple wants to bring their RV for a brief stay in Port Lavaca, that there will be a site available that they can book. And it's for that reason that the waterfront sites are not permitted for monthly rental, as was recommended by the Parks Board some years ago. The downside, obviously, is these great spots have an overall a very low occupancy rate. Our occupancy rate for those waterfront spaces are running around 12% on an annual basis. Although the waterfront sites are generally full over the holiday weekends, such as July 4th and Memorial Day. Then fourth, the Lighthouse Beach Park gate fees. The city used to charge a fee for vehicle entrance to the park. And actually those fees are still part of our rate structure. When the fees were being charged, the city was using camp hosts to man the booth and collect the fees. These not paid employees, but RVers agreeing to work in this capacity in exchange for free rent. After issues were discovered with this arrangement, the city stopped utilizing this method as collecting fees, since it would require hiring part-time employees, and the park was in a rebuild mode for several years following Hurricane Harvey. Now that we recovered from Harvey, Parks Board has recommended that council consider reinstating the gate fees in the Lighthouse Beach Park. One of the things to discuss, and Wayne's got some information on this in the packet, is in lieu of part-time employees, perhaps look at some sort of an automated gate system. There's an example in your packet where people would pay with credit cards, cash, or tokens if they get like an annual pass, or they have a pass for their stay at the RV park. And they use that, pay right there at the gate, and it's not a manned system. So there's no city employee that has to man that. So that's the information that I have available for discussion. I don't know if Wayne, if you got anything you want to add right now, or just open it for a dialogue.
Open up for questions.
So one thing I think it's important to park is we don't distinguish, because this goes to like mowing and so forth. I don't think we distinguish our RV park from our park.
Well, okay, to that point, and going back and researching exactly what is being paid out of the beach fund, which generally most everything is being paid for out of the beach fund. But to that point, I mean, the parks employees that are mowing that area do get paid out of the general fund. But what we have is this thing called inter-fund transfers. And currently, the beach fund does pay a percent of the administration of City Hall. And that has been 3%. Now, that's up to debate. We could change that figure, but Currently, they pay 3% of whatever revenue the beach brings in. They pay that back to the general fund for administration. The beach pays its own share of all windstorm insurance, of liability insurance. And, you know, obviously, there's one employee that is paid exclusively from the beach fund. There are, I did identify just roughly calculation, estimating after talking to the park superintendent, that's the cost, the employee's cost for mowing the Lighthouse Beach. It probably runs around $35,000 a year. So that is something, you know, that we can identify that, and that can be something that's transferred from from the beach to general fund to pay for that. We would,
But is that for the pool?
the pool is separate. The pool is not part of the park.
And the grass around the walkway
No,
and how do you distinguish the RV park from the park?
For the most part, we're not, we haven't got down to that minutia, that level. We're,
council, we've not distinguished.
Well, I know, but I think it's hard to say.
but they do mow at the same time. It's not.
Fund is carrying the park. I don't
I think that's,
No, that's not true.
Third party draw boundaries. We got a website that I can tell you exactly how much it's gonna cost to mow.
just the RV park. But I think the whole point is the parks have to pay their fair share of that too, because a lot of that is park. It's not necessary
To that,
to.
but to that point, everything past that entrance gate, the beach funds are paying for all the electricity, all the water for the whole park, not just the campground. They're paying for everything. The only thing that they're not directly paying for currently right now is the mowing.
And taxes, the appraisal district, I'm telling you guys.
Well, that is, we're not paying any,
Because it's operating on its own funds.
yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm operating on my own.
But yeah,
That's what.
But
they just call P&L.
the objective is, I think that the objective has always been that that I understood anyway from the Parks Board is to keep the fees high enough that we're not in direct competition. We're not undercutting anybody. Keep them high enough.
That was a requirement when we took it over from Texas Parks and Home. That's a requirement.
I haven't seen that written down anywhere, but yeah, I would.
But that, it is a requirement. So
Yeah,
I don't know how faithfully we've been looking.
I think we have been.
Only expired that 30 years. That's generally the Parks and Rec. That's what they require.
But bottom line, I do know the Parks Board, I think it's been 3 years since they looked at it. Because it was 2021, I think, when we updated this current.
Yeah.
And we're looking at it again and making recommendations again. And the recommendation that we'll look at in 3, it's based upon taking a realistic look at the expenses. And I mentioned that currently our current year's budget is 240 some thousand, I think. And when I add the $35,000 estimate for mowing, and then in taking a deep dive into all this, I realized that, like I pointed out, that the park is paying for all the electricity everywhere. I did find 2 accounts that were being charged incorrectly to the parks instead of the beach. So get that corrected, and that amounted to about $15,000 of course a year. So I plug that in, and that turns that 240 something, whatever it was, 260,000. So using the 260,000, what do we at our current occupancy rates, which overall, you can look, we're the back end hillside, we're about 65%, pull throughs 95%, but the waterfronts, like I said, currently they're like 12%.
2 spaces at the waterfront today.
Yeah,
All we have, and the other 19 or 20 spaces are vacant.
there's,
We have 7 spaces vacant at the pull through on the
Right.
hillside.
like I said, overall,
Vacant.
Overall, the waterfront on a year's basis last year, it was 12%, I think, was what that broken down.
Like 11 points. I think you said 12.
Well, right here, down here at the bottom on the big sheet, I've got it, the waterfront space is the occupancy rate broken down per year. 2021, it was 11.64%, 21-22 was 9.81%, 22-23, and that was the year we didn't, well, we had problems with park anyway, with the electric.
Why wouldn't you-
22-23 was 12.
Half of
Is that big?
Well, that's part of the discussion, whether we certainly, and we've had this discussion with the Parks Board in generalities. I mean, certainly we don't want to go back and offer all those spaces to monthly rentals because they will be eaten up. But perhaps look at some, maybe 6 of those. But and I did run that scenario. I think if we did that, we'd want the monthly rate for the waterfront to certainly be higher than the monthly rate for the others. So just for example, I've got on here, if 6 of the waterfronts were available for monthly rental at $900 a month and had 65% occupancy, which that might be a little aggressive to think, but if that were the case, then that would generate, with again, the 15% goal for the other 13 spaces, that would generate a little over $90,000 versus the projected 78,000 with 15% occupancy of the waterfronts all told. And the difference is because, we're using a daily rate versus a monthly rate. And of course, your monthly rate is not going to be 30 times your daily rate. So
We're planning on raising our fees.
yes, I mean, that's
Substantially where
the,
we won't have contract.
that's the proposal. That's the proposal.
Kind of the idea.
So I mean, at this point, it's what, I would like to get some feedback on, these 4 points that I think I would like to have some discussion on these just for, make sure we're on the same page moving forward.
What's the Parks Board's recommendation? Is that?
The Parks Board recommendation for fees is to increase them.
Okay, that's
And that's the third agenda.
the third one. Okay.
Yeah.
What about the length of stays and things like that?
They didn't have any recommendations to change. I mean, to go back to item A, I mean, is it? I just would like to hear some discussion whether or not the fees, and we just need to keep this in mind in setting our fees, whether the fees need to take care of any, proposed capital improvements. Let's say, for example, we wanted to build an extension to the wetlands walk, or build a kayak launch area, or an additional deck onto the fishing pier. Would those be eligible to be used to have tax dollars used for like they would in another park? Or would they be restricted to have to be used only the funds generated from the RV park? And so that's just a question, just for clarification.
Fees up high enough, we can use general fund money for the tourist stuff. To keep the fees high enough for the parks, where they won't be competing with all these other parks, and that's our point. People with children that want to come spend the weekend out there and use this park, that's fine, but having longer term people that could have been in one of these business people's park, some of them. Separate.
So I guess my concern is that 700 includes their water and their electricity. Is that correct or no?
We have no way to
Monitor.
individually meter our
We don't
water and
meter
sewer.
it.
I mean, our
Okay,
water,
so
our water
700
and
covers
electric.
their water and electricity.
Yes. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, they're charged.
That's a pretty steep price to pay, but then electricity is expensive and so is water. Do y'all's fees include water and electricity, or they have to get their own?
They have to pay their own electricity, but we
Those,
provide.
those are metered though. Yeah, I understand that, but once, we need to know where where it's all falling that way. We can set our prices, like if they're paying like $200 for electricity and 400 for rent, that's $600. And then they haven't even paid for their water yet, which is pretty expensive these days.
They said they include their water.
Ours includes water.
Everybody. Okay, so water, we got water covered.
Not legal to sell water or electricity.
But then we need to know how that's affecting, water's going up. So we need to know how that's affecting y'all's bottom line, where to set our prices. That way we won't be competing with y'all. We don't want to compete with y'all. We want y'all to be successful.
Yes.
But if you go look at our park today, there's multiple empty spaces. That whole waterfront is empty except for 2 spaces. And I've looked at some of the RV parks right now. What about y'all? Are y'all full right now?
All of them are.
All everyone knows you're dealing with the same thing.
Is Lavaca Bay full?
No,
Is Lone Star full?
no.
I drove by there today. There's not, I don't know where you put another one.
Well, so let him address some stuff.
Yeah, so. Number one, I don't think the city should be in the RV park business.
Well, I understand that, but we want to make it where y'all can make money. Regardless of how you feel about us having an RV park, we want y'all to make money.
The way you do that is you just,
You want to buy that RV park?
sure.
What we buy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we ought to get a price.
The thing is if you're really talking about tourism, you ought to be limiting people to 2 weeks. We RV all over the place. And if you've got people there
And
for
that-
long-term rental, they're there for a long
Well,
time.
and that's what we do. We do limit that to the waterfront, and I don't know that we would
But not to
necessarily.
your RV park, just to those front spaces.
Well, that's part of the campground, yes. But the upper ground, I mean, we're not allowed to say so-and-so can't come, obviously. But if somebody, we do limit it, and it was kind of a compromise to allow monthly rentals on the hillside, but no more than 6 months. They have to get out for 2 weeks before they can come back.
They're working and that's it.
But I don't know. I mean, that's policy. We could change that to 3 months or something.
Lure of what you guys lure our customers to your resort. You have a resort that you've used taxpayer dollars and grant money.
We use
to-
grant dollar, Texas grant dollars, but yes.
But he's got the premier park in town and he has been running in the red for 3 years. What has been going on is not working. He has a premier park with a lake and the best everything. And it still can't compete with.
What are the rates?
Start at $550 a month.
Per month?
Fuel rates are higher than ours.
Well, right now,
They-
but
yeah,
not what we
But we
were
propose to
proposed.
go higher. And that's been the problem for the last 3 years. I don't think we've monitored our rates sufficiently enough to prevent us from competing with.
Yeah, we don't want to compete. We want y'all to have.
But that does not include electricity, but does include water.
Right, that does not include it.
What's
Do you have Wi-Fi? Yes, we have Wi-Fi and cable. Yep. That's out there.
We don't right now.
They don't have that, that doesn't have that.
At ours.
Right. See, that's an extra call, so we can slide to her.
We've got a
So what's the electricity run on an RV? Is there kind of an average or is it all over the map?
There's some of them that are so big, they can run up to $200 a month.
That's what I was thinking.
We've had a few that had.
At least 100.
Yeah.
Let's just put a minimum of 100.
It's average.
I like where you're going.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, what about the rate on electricity? Do y'all get anything off of that? Some parks do.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
Oh, okay.
All we do is.
So what about us? We don't do nothing like that. Okay.
We don't have
I
that.
don't be illegal. I want them to make money.
So we're
They're
spending,
our fees. burning the electricity up.
Yeah,
I mean, they are
guarantee they're
burning it.
leaving for work with air conditioner rolling on if they're not paying for it.
When I built my park, I talked to some people at parks, they was like, see those two campers? I said, yup. And he's like, do you see any difference in them? Nope. He's like, $25 a month, $200 a month. Because they know they're not metered.
Some of
When they
those,
weren't metered.
some of those big RVs are 50 amp.
They got full-size refrigerators.
Just about almost every RV nowadays are 50 amp service. Yeah, I almost want to let it 30, because 30 amps, they end up burning your stuff up, they overload.
Okay, that's, I'm just curious, it sounds to me like you just don't want the city to be in RV business at all.
Well,
Because we've offered, you know, grandfather, everything, no fees. But yet you still want us to be out of the business because you're saying that we're taking business.
It's a conflict of interest. It's morally and ethically a conflict of interest.
Morally,
Yes. When the city decides how I'm gonna operate, where I'm gonna operate, if I'm in compliance or not, and you that competition at your end, but you can still decide anything where RV parks can be in the county, far enough away from yours. It becomes a conflict of interest, and the city hasn't even addressed that issue.
because we disagree.
Because you got a dog in the race.
No, we hold ourselves to the same standards. Yes, we do.
So I would say we actually hold ourselves to a higher standard, but we do meet the minimum requirements. The same as when I come to your property and inspect your property, even if you had a house here in town, I would do the same thing for my own house. It's the same inspection process, same, everything's gonna be the same. Everything is the same. There's minimum requirements that have to be met regardless if it's city owned, privately owned, whatever. So.
Okay, we're really at the agenda item 2, discussing whether to reinstate the admission fees.
Well, that's.
Let me do say this. So I told this to Jody, and I'll remove myself as the city attorney at this moment. But my husband goes to Lighthouse Beach every day, takes our dogs down there. He drives through there multiple times a day. That's just his thing, okay? And and especially on the weekends, he said it has gotten so out of hand with the riffraff down there, just terrible. Like, you know, and people that don't care. I don't know if you've had more since there's no fees. You know, there is no sense of pride anymore without those gate fees, that you need to hold yourself like a state park has fees to get in. I mean, you just respect it more when you have, and it doesn't have to be exorbitant, but he told me, I wish he would express to whoever at the city that they really should reinstate those park fees.
And in your packet is, you know, is an example of one of these automatic gate things, and we just got the quote today.
Yeah, which that brings, you know, we've looked at all avenues of this. For what it'll cost for this electronic gate that covers entry and exit. It's gated on both sides of the kiosk there. It'd pay for itself, I'm presuming, in 2 years in gate fees. But it'll cost us twice that much to hire employees to man the gate 7 days a week.
That's been, that was the problem with reinstating fees, is that we'd have to hire enough people to take in the fees, and then that would cost double what we would bring in.
And we still wouldn't be achieving what we're actually setting out to do, is build a maintenance fund so that we can take care of the beach amenities, the pier. And we've got that beautiful pier out there and no fund to maintain it.
Yeah, that's exactly the point of it. It's a revenue fund.
And I really, coming from the public works side of things, I really don't want to foot another $7 to $10 million to rebuild a pier or a walkway.
Justin Weaver wants to add something.
I have a question about gate fees. So we're talking about that little kiosk in the front, presumably. Do we rent out or reserve the pavilion behind the pool still? So how would the gate fees work? If I invited everyone to a party, they don't have to pay a $2 entry fee?
You get, yeah, you get a pass with that.
If you get your pavilion rental, you get X amount of passes. It's all done online, so you get a code for the gate and you'll be able to give that code out to.
And we use the same kind of system for anybody renting a space over the week or
Yes.
weekend, that'd be automated.
Yeah, we don't have all those details, but the company assures we can work all that out.
And then, so then are we charging a gate fee for anybody who's going fishing on the pier or launching a boat, like that?
If you're going through the gate with a vehicle,
Do we have there is gonna be an additional fee for a boat, or is there any kind of way that
No.
somebody's boat gets armed halfway through a?
No, but it's an extended entry loop in the pavement, so that the gate doesn't come down prematurely.
So I just use
We'll
it
have-
behind the guy in front of you.
yeah.
So
If you're that desperate.
pass. That is like an annual pass.
Yeah.
Annual pass,
This is what a lot of people did in the past.
right.
I made some suggestions to the park board on pricing for entry and the annual pass, but there was really no.
Yeah, at this point, their recommendation was just, let's start looking at this. They didn't have any specific recommendations on cost.
And how do you do the arm, I guess, arm the way it is? And I mean, where would you put that? I'm trying to think how.
It's pictures in the packet.
It's really neat.
There's pictures in the packet.
Say the entry kiosk would go away,
Okay, okay.
and then it would just be an island
Yeah.
with the
It's
seats on either.
It's similar to like a parking garage or something.
And then you had your they call.
And we probably put some bollards on either end so you can't, try to drive around.
Yeah, that's my other option.
So yours
Just go around it.
about 130, 140,000 to install? Is that what you said?
No,
No,
this is 42,000 to install.
Per entrance and,
That's for the entire setup.
so why is payback only why is it 2 years? That's almost,
That's just off.
Well, gate fees were running about 65,000 before we stopped doing it.
before Harvey, it was like 66,000.
Yeah, so,
And I was being conservative on
okay,
because
so that's even better. Yeah.
But Campos, it went down to about 30 or 40,000.
Right.
There's, I don't, whatever we set the fee for, however low it is for people taxpayers that has already paid for the park once with their taxes. Whatever we set. the fee
Taxes
for.
went into.
Hey, taxes is going into the whole city.
But it wasn't general fund. None of that was general fund dollars.
Maintaining the boardwalk, is
That,
that out of general fund?
No,
no, that was.
But it
you're
will
talking
be
about-
once we start.
grant.
No, it's gonna come out of beat.
that's.
And the only, we had public FEMA money that went into that. And we had other donated funds that helped.
Okay, how about Tilly Park?
Tilly Park is general fund.
Okay, so
But Lighthouse.
it-
No, like,
Lighthouse Beach is another park that belongs to the city of Port Lavaca. And so we're paying for Tilly Park. Maybe we'll collect enough money where we won't use general funds for any park. But what about the families that do pay taxes in Port Lavaca, but really can't afford to go to they got 3 kids and they want to go to the park. They want to go down there
Park.
where the water is. Park at the pool.
You can walk there.
Walk free.
So the annual fee,
I want to make sure that they have access to the park. That's what I'm worried about is, okay, who are we excluding? Now, if you want to take your car down there, okay, you gotta pay.
you'd have
Is that what it
to,
is?
you could,
You can walk through.
you could park at the Bower and walk.
Yeah, and I understand that, but there's $25 is a lot for people sometimes
12 months.
on, trying to provide for kids and keep them clothed. I know that.
So to your point, budget, so it's a revenue fund and it includes the park from the gate inclusive. Is that what we decided tonight?
I mean, this,
Not that we can decide.
this is, well, no, what I'm saying is we still haven't really settled this as far as discussion is the revenue is, yes, or the fees collected would be gate fees and campground fees. Any fees that are collected for that is that are the maintenance of the park, no question. But just the question is, does that include, because it doesn't say here, does it include capital improvements to Lighthouse Beach Park? To Alan's point, part of that park is a park. It's not really campground. It's open to the general public. And we're not necessarily charging adequate entrance fees to generate enough revenue to add another wing, even the matching funds for a Parks and Wildlife grant to add to the boardwalk or add a kayak launch. And I'm just asking the question, could it be an option to use general fund dollars for those sorts of things? Just posing the question.
So what did you do with this reminds me of the building? The amenity building,
In Milford?
is that what it's?
Towers?
Oh, you mean okay, that one,
Wasn't there some general fund dollars, the community room or whatever it was?
community room, that was built, what, 2006 or 7? I don't remember, but I mean, I think
We redid it.
I think it was beach funds, but
Yeah,
don't.
it was.
So
Because I think it was spread over 2 years, wasn't it, as I recall? Well, I was already coming to meetings, so that had to be something we did after 11. Or I was on Parks Board. It could have been I was on.
Because I was still here when because I designed the thing. I know we did it, what, 2006?
yeah.
Somewhere in that.
So when I came on council in 2015, I mean, it was made very clear to me that the beach was a revenue fund.
Right, and I
No general fund dollars could go into there except as a short-term loan. Same way with the poor. The money from into general.
and I'm sure that's what we were doing. I'm just bringing it up because of the potential of having some large dollar.
But that could be as a loan to the fund.
Right, but it may be a loan that's never pay back in our lifetime, but just,
That would be a discussion at that time, but the intent would be not to do that and then make.
And I agree.
Alternate fundraising to raise that money.
I mean, I agree. But I'm just recognize that.
It's been a good policy to maintain it, and I personally would not like to change it.
And that's my recommendation is that we go back to the gate fees so that we can pay for the maintenance. And in the future, if we want to extend the pier, if we want to do something, we've got those funds to do so.
But all I'm saying is that's not going to be enough funds to necessarily match even a Parks and Wildlife grant to extend the boardwalk, if we want to do that. But at that time, I guess we would just address whether, like I said, the rule that we don't, but.
It would be so rare.
But I'm just saying, we
make
would
an
be able
exception.
to do it at Bayfront, but we're not allowed to do it at Lighthouse, and I just.
The policy should be that it expanded and worked on its own fee, but if there's something major that comes up, we can vote on it and we can make an exception.
Well, and if you're extending the boardwalk to connect to Bayfront, well, that's.
No, I'm just,
If you're-
I'm saying like,
That's a different thing.
like if what we wanted to put, like an extension to the boardwalk of the little cul-de-sac out into our existing wetlands. We're probably talking $1 million,
Not doing something like that?
No, not today, but at some point, I mean, I'm trying to vision. Look in the future, amenities to the park. And then eventually that could make its way down to Lighthouse Beach.
As long as
I
we
mean,
keep the rental fees to reflect that high enough and
Yeah.
above where we're not competing with the local.
I mean, I'm fine. I just want to make sure that I understand council's intent. Yes.
Well, my thought about trying to talk about, let's extend the boardwalk. We've got enough problems trying to figure out where we are now without trying to figure out how we're gonna boardwalk.
Let Loretta have another word.
So from a business standpoint, to me, it seems like the city of Port Lavaca is, with the sidewalk to nowhere and extended the lights out.
That's not the city
Hey.
of Port Lavaca. Say,
We've got all kinds of city improvements going on with parks and stuff like that. I think the city, you guys are doing a good job with making it look better. And I know we have water infrastructure issues before we keep adding on to the resort down there. And
but we recognize those are different. That's a different fund of money.
I know, but
Yeah, we're not gonna
so
use.
I'm not telling you how to spend the money, but as a taxpayer, that general fund, you guys are spending money way more than business can keep up with. And I would just ask that stuff be self-sustainable, to where you're not including more infrastructure for people to have to pay for more parks and more stuff.
That's what we're talking about. I think we already have a policy that says that. That's what.
I agree.
About to maintain.
Yeah.
If there was an exception, like to add something to the nature walk or something that we get government help from Texas Parks and Wildlife or the federal government, we can join in on that, but we'd have to vote for special exceptions on that. But our policy would be not to do just exactly what you said.
But to clear that up, I think I want to edit this to include, to clarify, we mean capital improvements as well, not just maintenance. So there's no question.
There's other structures, but yeah.
But other maintenance of other
That's
structures is
just
the
a
way I
matter of
read it.
rewriting it, Jody. Let's move on.
I know, but I'm gonna, because we gotta adopt this for here anyway, just to clarify that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
Living shoreline that proposed, not the one that we've already got for the one that's gonna be out, didn't you say is that gonna be out towards
Lighthouse Beach,
Lighthouse Beach?
that is in engineering.
We have to have matching
Study.
funds for that.
At whatever point that we are going to
We have to-
construct anything,
We have to have
yes,
matching funds for that.
yes,
So is that gonna be general funds?
no. So we may
We
not,
have to take a loan from general fund. And I'm okay with that, it's a long loan, but that is a safety measure, the living shoreline.
but that, yeah, that's a couple years down the road.
What's the timeline on getting the kiosk and gate entry mechanism in?
They didn't give me a timeline.
We can't really start charging the fee unless we have some way of
Right.
collecting a fee.
Yeah,
Yes,
Just want to know the timing.
but we'll get this together and bring it to council to approve.
well, there's just because of the overall cost of it, I've got to do more research and find other options.
Right. This is just.
Just bring you one and ask you to approve it. I have to have.
Like a
Yeah.
year out.
Well, hopefully we can do it before that, but yes, it will take a little bit of time.
I'm always pessimistic on timeline.
Right, let's move on to agenda item number 3, discuss.
Real quick, is there any discussion on the changing any permitted length of stay for spaces? Any discussion on that?
How long do you have them staying now?
Like I said, the hillsides are allowed to stay for 6 months, the waterfronts for 2 weeks.
What's our experience? Do they stay 6 months and then?
Yes. Yeah, and then sometimes we have trouble kicking them off.
There are some that have found loopholes and they will have family members or spouses from another address re-rent the sites and stay there longer.
If they have to remove the RV and come back.
That's the loophole they're finding. They're registering under somebody else's name and staying there. And when we catch them, we send them on. It's been hard to police that. If we wanted to,
Stay down there for 6 months. Who wouldn't want to stay down there for 6 months?
Back. If under our current fees, we're comparable to what the other parks are, and they're getting all these extra amenities.
That's
So we increase our fees, we're not gonna have that many long-term.
Yeah.
So change one thing and then see how that works, and then not sufficient, we can change a second.
Yeah, and at that time, if the rate increase doesn't work, then I would come back and recommend, maximum 3 months or, that way we shorten the cycle of.
Okay.
That all you need? Well,
Yes.
one thing about that, on like in state parks, you have to physically remove everything and leave after 2 weeks. Now, we're talking about a different issue with parks, but in state parks, you stay in a site for 2 weeks, nobody can re-register it and your vehicle does not stay there. You take it out of the park, period.
And that,
Huh?
They have park rangers.
Well, I understand they have park.
but I mean, and essentially, that is our policy for, except for 2 weeks, for 2 weeks for the waterfront. And it is our policy 6 months, but they do have to get everything off and remove and have to be gone for 2 weeks before they can come back.
But we don't have a park ranger to go down there and check the.
Well, we
sites and
have-
stuff like
We have a camp host.
Or we have a camp.
We have a police department.
And we have a police department.
No, they don't like doing that stuff, but that's what,
Let's jump to agenda item number 3, since we've been addressing it.
Right.
Agenda item number 3, discuss recommendation of Parks and the Recreation and Parks Board to increase the Lighthouse Beach campground rental rate.
Wayne, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so the recommendation of the Parks Board is the consensus was that for the hill sites, the daily rates go from 50 to 70. The weekly rates go from 250 to 375, and the monthly rates go from 500 to 700. The waterfront sites, the daily rates would increase to 75 and the weekly rates would increase to 450. And the cabanas would increase to 70.
so they rent the cabana separate from the RV spot?
Well, it's for just a,
It's like a day.
Oh, anybody that wants to go use so you can't just walk up and just use a cabana? You have to, I didn't know that.
What are you talking about when you say cabana?
The blue-
The little blue things,
Yeah.
not the ones out on the beach.
Oh, okay. So
So you drive through your camper.
So listening about the electrical and water and stuff, do we want to revisit these numbers and make sure that they're?
well, if you go back and, what I did, just, and again, in my mind, these would be minimum figures. But, when I took this 260,000, if you look on the page 10 of the packet under agenda item 2, with the current occupancy, or it's bumped up a little bit from what we experienced last year, because I think last year we still had a little bit of the part of time when we had no electricity in the hillsides. But if we, have 65% occupancy of the hillside, 95 pull through, and 15% of waterfront, which would kick it up a little bit from what we saw last year. And at the $700 a month and the 75 daily, that generates $262,000, which is comparable to the 260 I came up with. Again, that's a minimum based upon these occupancy limits. Of course, the more occupancy we have, the more expenses we've got too. So it's, it's kind of again, I think this is what's recommended here, and this was stated several times in the Parks Board by Parks Board members as a minimum. Although we did have a couple members that their suggestion, well, let's try this, see how it works with expenses before we try to go any higher. But the consensus was this would be a minimum.
It doesn't jive with Lakeside though. They're at 685 and their people have to pay electricity.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's about 750 or 800. Maybe we should start at 750 or 800.
Because we don't have, this would include electricity, yes.
We're comfortable with Mr. Trevino's. So.
And again, if we go to 800, then everything kind of adjusts accordingly. We can look at that if we want to try 800 and then adjust from there.
That would be, yeah, I think 800.
Okay.
My recommendation.
Justin,
Staring right at me, Jim, call me out. I can't really see very well. Does this include the presumed gate fee,
It would come with a gate fee, yes.
I mean, you would assume like as far as your maintenance, and your costs go, are all up here in the red. And then your rates projected out with your supposed occupancy.
Yeah.
You get that even amount, so then your gate
This-
fee is your above or under.
This page currently doesn't reflect gate fees.
So you're talking about that would basically break you even and your gate fees are for maintenance.
Right,
So you're talking about running the RV park. Zero profit with no maintenance.
no, I mean, no, we want to generate enough revenue to cover our beach budget.
But I'm just saying, it looks like you need to go up a little bit more if you want to have additional revenue for budgets, expansions, maintenance, and all that. That's 700 to break it.
Yeah,
This-
that is true.
It's not here, have an additional.
Correct.
This would cover our RV park maintenance,
Right.
not any excess.
Not extra, correct, that's right. Yeah.
Close.
750, 800.
Okay, that's,
Yes.
Probably closer to 8 or 850.
Yeah.
So especially if we're not gonna be
50 or 800.
competing.
James Brown wants to speak.
So if you have a 12% occupancy on your overnight rental, I don't.
waterfront.
If you're there for no tourism, I don't see it as a good idea to go. All of our complaints is your monthly rental
Long-term
are
stay.
competing with us. You're not competing with us. Look, there was a campsite down there on the water.
So maybe
Both of them, I would say, that you keep those lower.
leave those where they're at. At the 320, at the,
Unless you're gonna open up some of those spots.
right.
We just don't want to entice contract.
People that want to
Yeah.
stay.
That's a good suggestion.
So for the waterfront, I mean, I can tell you that there were several members in the Parks Board that really thought that 325 was too low. Or even the, $55 a day, that they thought they'd have no problem with $75 a day for the waterfront.
I think it's too low. I think we need to go.
Just rented a place. He'll it over the weekend, and it was $88 for 2 nights. I mean, I don't think that's a bad price for you, $275.
Yeah, and the 75 is the break even point for maintenance and electricity and water per site.
Per day.
Okay.
To a little higher than that, to Justin's point.
But on the waterfront sites, I mean, we do want to people there for them.
To spend money in town.
But the other sites, yeah, we can go, I would suggest moving higher because we don't want to promote an RV park feel. We want to be a campground where they're not long-term. That was the initial reason to put the term limits on staying there.
And maybe to that point is for the waterfronts, maybe we should go look around and see more what some of the other, not in city limits, but like a Rockport and some of the other places are charging, because we don't want them to pass us by and go down to Rockport because we're way too high for those that are just coming for the weekend or for a week, that are truly tourists. And we were kind of, if we looked at,
Yeah, that was good input. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
yeah. But we'll do that in come back with some comparatives of other.
How about opening up some of the spots?
Yeah, that was another discussion we didn't really have, whether we.
I mean, you could make those higher because if they're
Yes,
subject to that rule, but
I mean, if in fact I wanted to open a few of them, they might be $1,000 a month or
I
something.
would think $1,000 a month.
This market, we might reconsider.
I mean, I don't know if
What if
anybody
we-
wanted or not.
I mean, what does it hurt to put it out there for $1,000 a month and see if it rents?
And if you want one for rent, doesn't, you know.
So.
That's the market.
So what weekends are they packed, right?
Memorial Day and 4th of July, I know. I don't know if there's anybody else.
We get a bunch of people for most of the holidays.
Okay.
And
that's.
Those two I
That's why
know.
we have 12% is because we're full of those
Yeah.
weekends and then we have 2 people every other week.
And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's 6 or 8, but it's only for
Sometimes there's
that
none.
weekend.
And
Right.
during the winters, we have a consistent flow in and out. I mean, it's not, they're not there for a full week. Sometimes they're there for a night and they, you know, we make a good stopping point on the way down the coast. And a lot of people come to just walk out on the bird walk.
Yeah.
Because that's something.
And Camp Spot does make it really easy to run some of these reports. So I can look and see, you know, we can look and see what is our occupancy, you know.
Brain, in the community room, do we have an area where we could advertise the other parks in the whole county, city and county?
No, we don't, but it wouldn't be hard to put up a bulletin board.
If you want to stay here longer than 6 months, please check these folks.
There you go.
These people
Yeah.
are just weekenders, but they may want to come back and stay for a long time, but we
That's
don't
good.
accommodate that. We want them to go to these.
Well, I think 6 months is a long time.
It is.
You oughta bring it down to 3 months.
So 1 month, maximum 3,
Yeah.
what you're saying? So monthly rentals, maximum.
And after that,
That was my original recommendation, but.
Parks board.
I mean, they're-
Board and Bill didn't like it, so.
Yeah, this started a while back. Yeah.
There's long. I think I'll try.
I think we're gonna take a hit, but
I mean,
I don't want to be in competition with everybody in 6 months. It's a long time.
That's not.
What's that?
To protect their business.
Right. we
Right,
want-
that was,
Well, we
I don't
need to
think
do
that was
both.
really the intent.
Yeah, we need to do both.
Yeah, we want to do both.
Oh.
Yeah.
and so with the 3 month, then again, they've got to get off for 2 weeks before they could come back.
So the 2 weeks thing, is that?
1 week or
They can't move to one of those.
I don't know, that's, yeah.
Property, then move right back. They have to move off.
They have to physically leave the park.
Yeah,
They can't rent another spot.
not another waterfront park.
RV has to leave.
I mean, leave the park
You're done. Move on.
Forever or per year?
Well, they can, I mean, okay.
That was an option that our software gives us is the length of time.
Yeah.
They can come back. And
It might be.
it's 2 weeks, so you're there for your time. You cannot rent a spot in that park under your name for 2 weeks.
So it's sufficiently pain enough to. Okay. Well, I don't know.
And we do get complaints about it, I'll tell you that.
Just-
okay.
Let
them complain. We're not in the same kind of business as these folks over here. We're looking for tourists coming through and fishing and doing a short-term visit. These folks are looking for longer term where they can,
So what happens to the people that stay 6 months? Where do they go after that? Any idea?
they can go to one of these.
Well, because then maybe, say 3 months max, if you want to stay longer, then you move to one of the other, it's.
The recommendation was prior. When your time's up here, we have several other RV parks in town.
Well, should we just go with that? I mean, raise the rates a little bit and then go with that and then see how that works?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, if they want to come back, then we say they can't.
I think we ought to put a
I mean,
time limit on it.
Some of them go down to Magnolia Beach for a couple of weeks, honestly, I think.
Yeah, that's.
They've been,
They
they,
go park on the beach. They're creating issues there, which is the county.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a hard RV park.
Yeah, well, so.
It's pretty nice.
So if you kicked it up to a month, then they get settled in another place, they may not want to move again. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
It's all things that we can look at. I mean.
Well, why don't we get some
we're set up
input
now.
from these folks? What would offend them? If we said stay 3 months and then you got to leave, but they come back after 2 weeks, what would y'all think was reasonable for them to come back?
That's their choice.
Yeah, you can only do so much.
I prefer resort living than a parking lot.
Didn't want them there at all. All right, well, okay.
I think we have enough, we can
Get our
policy
Or at least get something right, yeah.
The fees, I think what the park board was saying is if you get the fees up, don't worry about the length.
Until, yeah,
And
Yeah, change one thing.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Determine a lot.
Enough information now.
Yes.
I guess the other question, do we need an ordinance that states that we'll keep our rates?
We could establish a policy.
Yeah, I think we should establish, because that's the point.
And that it be reviewed.
This way, there's a policy.
That we review it annually.
Yeah.
Right.
We used to be stricter with that. The last couple of years, 3 years, we got.
Well, it wasn't open for 2 years. Yeah, we lost track.
We adjourned. Parks have caught up.
Okay.
And honestly, you know, while we were in rebuilding after Harvey and the electrical fiasco and everything, it wasn't the time to raise rates, but now that all that's behind us, yes, it is time.
Exactly.
Entertain.
So moved. Okay.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Didn't have a special session.
That was never gonna end. These people aren't happy and I'll make sure.